Today is a historic day for the sport of basketball and for the state of Western Australia.
That's ridiculous! Ross Coleman is very, very best!
We are unleashing a new, powerful movement in basketball where the whole sport comes together under Hoops Fest, the first ever time this has been held.
Welcome back to the Gold Standard as we track the progress of the Boomers, the Opals and South Sudan during their Paris campaigns. And we come to you early on a Wednesday morning, and to be totally frank, we are as flat as a biscuit this morning because Australia were 24 points up in the second quarter against Serbia. And from there, things just unravelled. Off very little sleep, I'm Jack Heverin, Andrew Bogut, Brad Newley alongside me. Gents, this is a pretty ordinary way to start the morning, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm running on 2 hours of sleep. Don't know about Newells or you, Jack, but couldn't really get to sleep after that game. But yeah, really disappointing way to go out.
Yeah, far from ideal start to a Wednesday. Yeah, tough for the guys. Feel it for them. Been in that position before. All of us have been there. Yeah, let's have a chat and see what we can come up with.
I think your point's a good one to start with, Newells. Fans are hurting. There's no doubt about it. Like, as a nation, we're bleeding for this team that we had expectations for, and particularly the way that it's lost. But what would the players be feeling right now?
I mean, anytime you enter a campaign, you try to come out of it with a medal. The players right now, I'm sure they'd be looking at themselves, thinking what they could have done wrong, could have done better, the errors they might have made in their preparation, who knows? There's all these things that go through your head. There's a period of time it takes to get over. I guess with Olympic basketball, one thing I always try to take out of it was we moved into our club system straight away. A lot of the swimmers and athletes that's their one time. That's their only chance. And all these guys will go back to their clubs and they can kind of move on that way. And I think that's a benefit for the clubs. You're going to have some hungry players, but that was always the best way to deal with it. You kind of think, sit on it for a bit, then you move on. But unfortunately, the punters and the fans, they hang on to it for a little bit longer. So, but I'm feeling for the guys. It's tough. The preparation was big. The expectations were high. It's not always the case. You don't win sometimes.
Do they stay with you for years, Bogues, these sorts of losses at major tournaments?
Some of them do, yeah. These kind of ones do. Look, the next day you're in your own head thinking about what could I have done, what could we have done, where did it go wrong? As Newell said, the beauty of professional sports is a lot of these guys are professional around the world, that you're going on to your next thing. And that's a good thing as an athlete. We don't have 4 more years, or most Olympic athletes probably have 2 more years till their world event and then another Olympics to train and think about it. We have to go on to the next thing. So that's actually a good thing for you, but it's hard. The one that haunts me is Spain in 2019 World Cup that we still think about today. It's like, one of those ones, a few dubious calls, a few bounces of the ball, a few breakdowns defensively, and you win that game easily. And I think this game's very similar. I felt like we lost the game 3 separate times. Like, it felt like there were 3 games in the game. And we'll get into that now. But I thought, that first half, I think, is where we lost the game. I think the last 4 minutes cost us big time. We should have had a 20-plus point lead. And Serbia made a little run, got it to 12, and then we got it back out to 17 or 18, but they cut it back to 12 again. Offensive rebound late, second chance point. And I think that's, in FIBA basketball, especially with a 40-minute game, you have to finish quarters and finish halves. And we played a fantastic 18-minute half, or maybe 17-minute half. That last 3 minutes, they cut it from a 24-point lead to 12. Huge for Serbia, and then momentum swung in the second half.
It was almost like they could just smell that little bit of blood in the water, wasn't it? Got that O-board, they went into half-time. And every time they hit a nice shot and they ran a nice crisp offense, it just kept coming down and down and down. And that 12-point margin at half-time, there would have been some shaky conversations in the locker room at half-time, that's for sure.
This question's a broad one, and it might take up a decent part of the show, but where did it go wrong? Where did it unravel for Australia after what was a stunning first quarter?
The tale of 2 halves. I think offensively we were, Paddy was on fire in the first half, couldn't miss. I mean, Paddy could have thrown up a hook shot from half court, would have went in. His eye was in. He was on one of those nights. And then it was night and day in the second half. I felt like we moved, even though Paddy got hot, we moved the ball very well in the first half. Duop Reith, open dunk. Giddy's getting in the lane, kicking out to three-point shooters. That second half, when things tightened up, we went straight ISO ball. We went to, the Serbians did a great job of switching 1 through 5 at times. And a lot of times we saw Jokic on our guards. And he's not a great defender, but what he is a high basketball IQ player. Like, he's going to make you take a shot you don't want to take. Comes up with a big block on Giddy late in the game. We just went to straight isolation basketball. There was no ball movement. The one ball movement we had was Paddy was doubled on the right wing. We swung it to the top, swing. Josh Giddy hits a 3 in the corner. That was great because everyone touched the ball. That was kind of rare in that half. And to be so night and day, and that's kind of been the story of our tournament. I've spoken about it at length, is we'll look elite for 4 or 5 minutes and then look piss poor for 4 or 5 minutes. And we just couldn't find that consistency to, you got to turn that piss poor into just average. You'll be fine. Everyone has ups and downs in games, but it was like the contrast between how elite we were at times to then just fell off a cliff, cost us. And Serbia took advantage of that momentum. They've been in these spots before. And I thought our defense was pretty good throughout the game. But in the second half, it's hard to keep getting stops when you go down and just lay absolute eggs offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the first half, look, our D was up and about. Like, we weren't taking the ball out of the net and having it walk up the court. I think that was a big factor in how our offense completely slowed down. And I think half court, there wasn't a lot of cutting or ball movement. The first half, our offense looked great because we were getting stops and we were basically playing semi-transition every time. There wasn't a whole lot of sets, and I think that's where we struggled. And we struggled as a bit of a nation in the last three years, I think, in the half court. I think Andre, he had a pretty nice half court set. I think we probably looked past that a little bit, but every time we kind of needed to get a bucket, we could find one through that system. So, I think that's something we need to look at going forward, is how we can execute a little bit better when we're not getting stops and running in transition. We need to be able to find a way, and we've been doing it for years, how to find a way to match it with the European teams in the half court. And I think that, defense is still out. It was the only way we could create those easy shots. Paddy was out there on the break getting, pushing early kind of looks. But as soon as we were, late shot clock, that's when we didn't look great at all.
After the Greece game, and we spoke about this on the show, that Brian Goorjian used the word hero ball and said that, that's where things really went wrong in that game. Did we, just reading between the lines of what you've both said, did we almost return to a little bit of that at stages in this game?
I mean, at times the hero ball comment, it's a tough one because the guy's got 20 points on how many shots. It's one of those things where he's going to keep on gunning. And any natural basketball, that's how they think. If I'm going well, I'm going to keep looking because it's going well for the team. We're up 20, why not? But I think the issue was what else is there but the hero ball? Hero ball was the only way we could win, and it's just not sustainable.
You live by it, you die by it, Jake. That's the unfortunate reality of it. We've won with it, won a bronze with it, but we've also bombed out of the World Cup and the Olympics now with it as well. So it's hard. Whenever you have a guy, and this isn't a knock on Paddy, whenever you have one guy that's really hot in the half, no one else is really involved. Other guys aren't really getting the feel. Newells knows what it's like being in that corner as a 3-man, and you don't feel the ball for 4 or 5 possessions, and then all of a sudden, someone swings it to you and it's an important shot that you have to make, and you're like, oh, that's what the ball feels like. I better make this shot. It's one of the hardest shots in basketball. I experienced it with Harrison Barnes in Golden State under Mark Jackson. That was one of his frustrations, and everyone goes through that. And that's what happens when one guy gets super hot in FIBA basketball, especially with the Euro coaches. They make adjustments really well. At halftime, they'd made an adjustment. Avramovic went onto Paddy and was making his life hell in that second half. Paddy was still trying to find that hot streak he had in the first half. It was gone. And then no one else was really feeling in the flow. Josh Giddey got to go on a little bit, hit some shots, but you look at Josh Giddey and Paddy Mills, 26 and 25 respectively, Dante with 12, McVeigh with 13. McVeigh actually hit some really big shots to keep him close.
I thought he tried it.
Yeah, other than that, there wasn't Dyson Daniels 0. There wasn't a whole lot there. Nick Kay, not a great performance again, which also has been an issue throughout the tournament. This has probably been Nick Kay's probably most subpar tournament of his Boomers career. Like, he just didn't look himself. Josh Green plays 1 second, which is wild. So there's a lot going on there. Dwight Reith doesn't play minutes early. He comes in and actually has a really good effect. I thought he was really, really good in his limited minutes. Also played 21 minutes, so he comes in. So Gorge was searching for stuff, but it just, you go to 53 points in the first half to 28 points in the second half. We just struggled to score, and then our defense suffered for it. And 23-11 second chance points. At one point, that was 20-5 in favour of the Serbians. So we're coming up with stops, as Newell said. They get offensive rebounds, tip outs, kick out threes. That's just super demoralising, especially, in that second half.
Forgive me for being the pessimist out of this or the negative out of it, but a few fans have certainly said it as well. Is it ironic in a way that we finished the game on a turnover? We couldn't inbound late. We had one last chance, couldn't get the ball in. We averaged the best part of 17 turnovers across the tournament. It was a massive problem again for us last night. And to be fair to both of you, from the very first warm-up game, you both flagged this as being a major problem with this Australian team, is their inability to look after the ball.
Yeah, I mean, in international basketball, you look at European box scores, the turnover is very, very low. The possession game there's way less possessions than here in Australia. So just the continual, just giving them the ball for no reason. We're struggling to score as it is, but then just giving them an easy way out just didn't play into our hands at all. So that'll be something that we need to look at for sure. And you've got to understand, Josh, Dyson, they're still very young in their careers, and they're going to learn from these kind of moments.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? 20 turnovers to 14. 20 turnovers to 14 assists for us. It's just not going to get it done. You got to get that number should be reversed. You got to obviously have more assists than turnovers. But with the style of play that we're playing, Jules mentioned that the up-tempo open floor, you got to have turnovers. That's just the unfortunate reality of playing that tempo. The reason why the Euros can kind of have low turnover games is they really bog it down and dictate where we want our shot from, get a good shot, get our defense set. Whereas we're held to skelter. You could see with the pace we play, it's a bit of a chaotic style of play, which works in our favour, but it can also go against us. And it's tough. It's that switch of, do you want Josh Giddey, Dyson Daniels, Paddy Mills playing kind of slow down and make the right decision? That's not their game. They're best in the open floor, making quick decisions, and unfortunately, you got to live with the bad. But they definitely got to clean that up. That's a huge issue. 20 turnovers, and a lot of times for live baskets. So that's something that they're going to have to look at. We do have numerous guards now within the national team program that'll be there for the long haul. Something we're going to fix.
I'm not saying this was the difference between winning and losing, but were you surprised when Gorge was searching for stuff in the second half? Were you surprised to not see Josh Green, or for 1 second, and Joe Ingles at any stage?
Joey, not so much. I mean, Joey hasn't really played much at all, and I just don't see where you'd fit him in. Josh Green, yes, but as I mentioned in the last recording that we did, he's looked out of sorts all tournament. Hasn't looked great. It's kind of not nonchalant, but just kind of doesn't. Where do I fit? Where do I shoot? Like I said, hit the side of the backboard. Josh Green's a pretty good 3-point shooter, especially over the last couple of years in the NBA. So when those kind of things happen, I think the coach has lost confidence in him and went away from him. And I think Daly took those minutes. I thought Daly was good again, even though his stat line was 11 minutes, 0 points, but plus minus of 3. I think his defense was good. Came in and tried to cause a bit of chaos that way. But Dyson Daniels, probably not his best game to finish. I thought he had a good tournament otherwise. But yeah, Jack, it's hard to play 12. As soon as Dwight Reith came in, played 22 minutes, which was super surprising, like I said. And McVeigh, he played 30 minutes last night, which is wild. A guy that probably just scraped in by some people's picks to the national team, that's come in and he made some big shots. But yeah, it's a tough one. He was searching, couldn't find it. Second half, just absolute train wreck and just a heartbreaking way to go out. I think that's going to be our biggest lead in Boomers history to lose a game from, correct?
So,
no, yep. I'm just racking my brain.
Greece game, Newell?
That was just in a short period of time.
Yeah, well,
so
10 and 40 seconds left.
That was 6. Yeah, we won't go there. But I just, on the back of Bogues, the whole, trying to give guys confidence in a quarter final is just, for a coach, that's a tough position to be in. And I don't think, that's the reason why those guys they didn't get out there. So but that's also, how they were managed. But I just don't think, trying to give a guy a confidence boost in a quarterfinal is the way to go. And that's obviously why Josh probably only played that 1 second.
So is it a successful campaign?
Well, you look at the win-loss, it was 1-3, right? So lost the last 3 games in a row. Probably the eye test is probably no, given the expectations of the group. The fact that we got into a quarterfinal was probably a bit of a win in itself with the way that the tournament is structured. It'd be interesting to see how we would have gone in the old format. The old, 5 games potentially, that might have looked better on paper because you probably potentially win 2-3 games. So, but I think the guys would be disappointed. I'd imagine we're not happy with that result, and so we shouldn't be. We're a team that swings in the high, top 4s these days, and I don't think it was a great campaign at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think, especially considering the way the game went, up 24, I would say it hasn't been a successful campaign, and most of the guys on that roster, if they were being honest with you, would say the same thing, probably say the same thing. And that's probably the most heartbreaking thing, is knowing that you had Serbia on the ropes and just couldn't finish the game off. But it's going to be an interesting transition for the Boomers program, which I'm sure we'll get into maybe a little bit later. But a lot of young prospects, a lot of guys in the draft over the last couple of years that are going to rear their head into roster spots. Some aging veterans that are on the way out. New coach potentially, or most likely, Gorge getting up there in age, and we want him fresh for Sydney Kings, of course. So it's going to be interesting to see.
You wear 2 hats, man.
That's right. It's going to be interesting to see which way the program goes, but it is probably in a transition period, and that's always tough with how you manage that.
Well, let's go there now, because I think that's the biggest question mark going forward with this Australian team. Firstly, on the fact that it is an end of an era. So Brian Goorjian, second time around as coach, I think has been pretty upfront in saying that this would be his last major event. Joe has been very much the same. And while Paddy Mills wasn't committal overnight, you do the numbers, it's going to be a pretty special effort for Paddy to be available for the next major event. So just on that, firstly, this era that we had under Joe and Paddy, and you both know them and played with them, it's elevated the program, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. I'll touch real quick. They both came in as teenagers, and they've lasted this long. And from where the games come back in 04, 05, not a whole lot of eyeballs on the national team. We used to scratch to get the state netball centre full. And now we're selling out Marvel Stadium. Bogut is much part of that. So I think just that from where the eyeballs on the national team's gone from to now is a lot due to those 2 guys and what they've done in their careers. So hats off to them, and I'm sure they'll get the right send off when it comes. But Paddy, I'm not sure where he's at. Joe definitely, he's signalled he might be his last. So they're great servants to the game, and pleasure to be teammates with them at some stage. But what they've done for the game and the status that they've helped Basketball Australia get to is pretty impressive for mine.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. By reports, I've heard that Paddy wants to go again. Be 39, I believe, the next one, or 38 for the World Cup the year before. Would be hard. I think, especially with his game, speed is a big factor for him. The way he comes off screens can create separation. We saw it last night in bursts. He hasn't really lost that step yet at 35, which is pretty impressive. I think that's going to dwindle a little bit. As old age comes knocking, you lose a bit of your speed. So take it from me, it definitely happens. And we've got other guys coming up, Furphy and whatnot. There's other guys knocking on the door, but it's going to be a Dyson Daniel, Josh Goody led, and Dante Exum will be in the next one. They're kind of your three guards, but especially Dyson and Josh. And Josh Green is going to be in there. Matisse Thybulle, does he come back? There is reports that he's not too happy with the whole situation, and it's going to might be a bit of a challenge to get him back in the fold to even put his hand up. So that's an interesting one as well. But we've got a great young core, and then you throw Jock Landau in there. Probably will play the next 2 Olympic campaigns. I'd guess should get to the next 2, which includes Brisbane, which is great. McVeigh's probably solidified a spot within the 12, I would say. And then Delhi's. There is reports that Delhi wants to go again, Newells. As
Delhi told me, you'll see me in LA. So on holiday or playing basketball?
If Delhi had his way,
he's super keen.
Brisbane, wouldn't he?
Yeah, Delhi will play. Yeah, oh yeah.
That diet. Who played till he's 50?
So Daly's the other one that'll probably be most likely gone by then. Like I said, age is undefeated. But yeah, it's an interesting time. But albeit, as Newell said, our national team from where it was when I joined in 04, a little bit before Newell's, it was in a huge transitionary period from all the legends retired after 2000, and it was a cliff edge. Like it was like we had no core, it wasn't sustainable long term. It was kind of bits and pieces. We had, I think, 04, 06, 08 were all kind of different rosters. And then, going into 12 to 16, we started to get a bit of a core, and then built that into what's happened today and snagging a bronze. So really, really good stuff as far as that goes. But I think we'd all agree that the bronze was great and fantastic and historical, but I think we want to aim for the gold one day, and I think it's definitely achievable with this roster.
So the names that you both mentioned there for the future, and Johnny Furphy as a boomer, even just thinking about that's exciting, but you could potentially throw old Rocco Zakarski into that mix by the time our next campaign comes around as well. Will Magnay and Dwight Reith will still be around from a big man perspective as well. So with all of those names, who coaches this team? Who should Basketball Australia target to be the next Boomers coach?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like you look at some other programs, like you look at the Canadian program, they have a Spanish guy kind of running their situation. Spanish have had an Italian guy. Do we look at an international kind of thing to try and play into the European game a little bit? I'm not sure completely. Like I'd vouch for my old coach, Dean Vickerman. I think he always would love to put his hand up if he got approached. There's a lot of other good candidates out there. But right now it'll be a big review. I'm sure a lot of people want to put their hand up and take charge of that group. Who knows? Maybe Bogues might step in. But I'll leave that up to him. But yeah, so interesting. Like I can't imagine Gorge probably going around again. Like I said, he's got his Kings to look after. But yeah, an interesting period of time. What's the next major? We got a World Cup coming up, right? Cup. So the turnaround's 2 years, so it's reasonably quick. So,
but we have all the Asian Cup qualifiers.
Yeah, there's qualifiers, and
I'd assume will be the head assistant, which will most likely, or one of the assistants, which will be Australia based. But you look at what Canada's done with Fernandez, and do we go that route?
I mean, they dropped out overnight, but
I mean, do we go that route? I mean, it's do we go a route of hiring a fly in, fly out? There's a lot of danger with that. A fly in, fly out NBA coach that just comes in for a month and then leaves. Bit of danger in there. Does he know the group as well? All that kind of stuff. But that's probably more appealing to some of our NBA guys, is to have an NBA guy that's involved in the NBA on the day to day. Is what I'm hearing. A lot of the younger guys kind of want something like that. But from a sustainability of a national team program, you want someone that probably knows the Australian system a little bit better and the way things run over here. So I would go open slather. I would Basketball Australia need to start from zero, start a pool of maybe 10 to 15, narrow that down to 5, and then have your hardcore interviews. That's the best way to go. And I'll balance it from every man and his dog. Have some Australian candidates, like Newell said, have some Euro candidates, have some American candidates. The only danger with the US candidates, I feel like if it's their first international tournament with the Boomers, I think it's going to take them a year or two to figure out the FIBA game, because it's different. No matter, people say basketball is basketball. With FIBA, it's different. You get an NBA coach coming over to coach FIBA. It's an adjustment period. It's not as easy as just clicking your fingers. There's a lot of different aspects of coaching a FIBA basketball game, and that's why these Euro coaches are so good. And we just, we don't want to bring in someone who's a rookie FIBA coach, and then that's their year of training, and we bomb out of a tournament. So there's that danger as well.
I think you might need to look a little bit at how the past, like you mentioned, that the good era kind of once all the legends kind of moved on, the 12 through 16 right up until the bronze, that was kind of run almost like a club system. Everyone knew where they needed to be on the floor. They knew the offense. They came together, reasonably, regularly. And I think that's something you need to look at instead of these like spot camps, trying to figure it out in 4 or 5 days. And that has a lot to do with where our players are at now in the world. But I do think the way that program was run in that period of time ultimately led to, 2 fourth finishes, and, the fingerprints are all over that bronze team as well. So I think they need to kind of look at that, the way that worked.
The tough part about that, Newell's, is the players' associations don't allow it.
Yeah, they stand.
So I think it's 1 month max pre the first Olympic or World Cup game NBA players are to report. So you just don't have time. And this is the danger, the danger of having such a deep team of NBA players is that we play a Canada style of basketball that basically is, to me, Canada was USA light. I was like, look, they play exactly like the US. They're going to face the US and get absolutely mauled if they face them. The Euro team's going to out-execute you. I think we're in a danger of that period. Are we going to become USA light where we have all these NBA players and we're just going isolation basketball? I think I agree with Newles. We got to have, the beauty of Lamar's system was we would get easy baskets at times, that weren't off the dribble, that we didn't have to use too much of our legs or ISO, and you have to have a little bit of that. I mean, last night I would have liked to have seen some more.
A simple flow cross.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy for us to be armchair critics the day after.
Yeah, I know. I'm sitting here throwing stones.
That second half, throw it. Jock didn't have a great game. Foul trouble. He got some really questionable foul calls, which just got him out of his rhythm. We tried to post Josh at one point. He got turned over, and then we never went back to it. I would have liked to have seen just throwing it down to that block in that second half and just flattening the defense out. Just having something else rather than pick and roll to me would have been key. But the tough thing is for Gorge is you got literally 1 month of preparation. How much can you put into that time? But if we have something that we can normalize, that this is our bread and butter every campaign, like Newell said, this is what we run, this is what the Boomers are known for, then we can add little tweaks along the way in camps before tournaments. But to do that, I think you need probably leaning towards more of a full-time coach almost with the national team, which not many coaches want to do because they're coaching in the club. BA obviously would have to have a much bigger checkbook to do that as well, which sometimes is a bit of a hindrance.
Just a quick prediction. Who's winning this thing? Team USA too good?
Oh, for me, at this stage, I just watched them demolish the Brazilians.
Yeah.
I think, it's got to be them, right? Who are they? Germany? I mean, who knows? They looked pretty good last night against the Greeks, and they've done it before, but it's hard to go past the US.
Yeah, Germany, Greece, and US, Serbia. So, look, Serbia is probably the best chance, I think. Serbia is one of the best chances to knock off the US if anyone is, but the US just have a lot of weapons, and it just seems like, Kerr's not afraid to bench guys, as I've seen in the lead-ups. He's benched Embiid for games. He's benched Tatum. He's not afraid to make those decisions, and they have a pretty good rotation of guys. What I like about the US team this time around is they've got a lot of good shooting around athletics, basket, getting the paint guys, Edwards, Durant, those guys, and then you've got Steph and Bogut to throw it out to. It's like, they've got a really good mix of offense and defense, and they're always, especially in the Olympics, the World Cup's a little different because sometimes you get more of a B squad. But in the Olympics, they're always the favourites until they're beaten. So I'm picking USA to go all the way. I just don't think they'll be beaten. And what I've seen the last couple of games from them is they have poor periods, and they put Kevin Durant in there, and he just, the guy's 7 foot and just an absolute bucket getter, and just can turn their crappy offensive possessions. Much like we had last night, you have KD on that team, you just throw it to him and get out of the way, it gets you a bucket, So they're going to be a really tough beat, and you got to play a perfect game to beat them.
So the hopes
French, we didn't mention the French, sorry. The French on a 1 out, France, Germany, they get things going for them. They got the crowd on their side. They got those big, the only thing with them is their guards will get destroyed, I think, by the Yanks.
Not deep enough against the US, in my opinion. If they get through Germany, I think Germany should get that game. Germany were pretty impressive last night, just seeing they got down big early and just grinded it back, and then ended up winning by good digits. So pretty impressive that they kind of just grind you out, FIBA basketball. So I was impressed by the way they played, and the Wagner brothers were really good. So yeah, I think it's US is to lose. I don't really see anyone else threatening them other than I think Serbia's probably got the best chance to knock them off in the semi.
So the hopes of Australian basketball now rest solely with the Opals, who are in action tonight, ironically, against Serbia as well. Much better performance a couple of days ago against the French. Certainly, we've been talking a lot about turnovers. Looked after the basketball a lot more. Tess Madgen was fantastic as captain. What are our expectations tonight?
I think that they've got the players to get past Serbia on the international stage. I think we've got a higher rate of players. If they can play with the same kind of pace and intent they did on the last game, but they should be okay. The one thing you might see a little bit, it might be a little bit more of a half-court game. The Serbians tend to slide. You might see some more of LJ. She didn't play last game, potentially, just due to matchups. But I think that could be a game where she opens it up with a couple of threes when she subs in. But the veterans like Kayla, Tolo, they've been doing such a great job. And, Tess, she stepped up big time in the captain's game. So, I think that they'll get over the line there and, onto the semis.
Yeah, talk about staring down the barrel and digging yourself out of a hole. Fantastic effort. You know, we spoke about their first game against Nigeria and probably that they're in some trouble. They were two really tough teams and they just grinded it out. Kayla was huge. Their game against Canada and, you know, they've done a great job just to grind it out and not give up. They could have easily, no one would have thought otherwise of like, yep, two tough games. They split those, they're out. Unlucky, but they just found a way to do it. So congratulations to them. And we're all, you know, the whole basketball community's got their eyes on them as far as representing Australia to hopefully finish it off the right way.
So good luck to the Opals tonight. Well done to South Sudan as well, their first Olympic campaign, and quite a few positives to take out. I think it's probably fair to say, and I know Majuk Deng said something similar overnight, but I think Bull Quoll can take a lot out of this Olympic tournament. You know, there's talk around Bull being a player that should be looked at for higher honours at some point down the line. He was terrific. Yeah,
not yet, Jack. A couple of years in the Kings jersey, but yeah, he had a phenomenal tournament. The exact reason why we went after him is what you saw out there. Is he's a two-way player. His offense continues to get better every night. We do want to clean up his fouling a little bit. So if he's listening, we want to keep him on the floor and keep him out of those 3 to 4 foul games where we got to kind of rest him because he's in foul trouble. But that's just because he plays so hard defensively. So we're looking forward to getting him to camp next week. And he's a tremendous player and just continues to get better.
Yeah, I just like he's a competitor. You know, having mashed up on him when I was a bit of a geriatric, he was hard to deal with when he's trying to crush the glass. So. I've enjoyed watching him, from the sidelines and as an opponent. And I'm proud of the work he's gone and done, and hopefully he can continue to get somewhere in his career.
Well, that sees us out for the Gold Standard. I can speak on behalf of fans. Thanks so much to both of you. It, from an NBL point of view, has been one of the most watched and most listened to things that we've ever done. The comments and the feedback from the fans has been phenomenal, listening to you two talk basketball and talk about what it takes to play at the highest level on an international stage like this. So on behalf of everyone, thanks to both of you. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you over the last few weeks, and your insights have been outstanding.
Thanks, Jack. It's been fun getting up and talking basketball with you guys, and all the best now to the Opals and the rest of the Olympic campaign.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. And one for the fans to leave in the comments. Let's look who's the next head coach. Who do the fans think? Australia, Europe, or the US? What route should the Boomers Basketball Australia look at? Maybe you can put some pressure on them in the comments.
Just a little clip on the way out. He just couldn't resist, could he? That is going to see us out for the Gold Standard, Bogues. I know you're off overseas, so travel safe. Newell's NBL 25 is not far around the corner as well. So again, thanks to both you, and a massive thanks to everyone for joining us across the Paris campaign. This has been a lot of fun. It's been the Gold Standard.